I mean, what's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stone.
Am I going to get sued?
We got legal on this?
I like football, I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube here, ready to go through all the Week 14 NFL action. It's a full slate, Sam. They're making us work extra.
Overtime?
Again.
We get overtime pay?
I think we just get standard time. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they took money away from us on shorter weeks.
Standard time, there's just more of it.
Yes.
I got it. Gotcha.
So we got to be quick. We got a hard out here, so we got to go through all the games.
Yeah?
Sound good?
In just 2 hours.
In just 2 hours. Can we do it? Set the
tight.
timer.
Pretty tight.
Here we go. Week 14, it's going to start in Pittsburgh. New England Patriots at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Looking like a Mitchell Trubisky versus Bailey Zappi matchup, though. Wow. Bill Belichick, once again, is mum on his quarterback situation.
Mum.
Yeah. Because there's a schematic advantage, potentially, to not knowing if you're facing Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi.
To not knowing which terrible quarterback is going to start.
Yeah. Patriots have scored 30 points since October. It's December.
Yeah.
And it's the Steelers by 6 with one of the lowest totals I think you'll ever see in a game. It's right around 30, I believe. But the Patriots haven't had a game go over 17 also in a month. So it's a fascinating game here on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, and they might not need to score more than a touchdown to cover that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Chargers covered the 5.5 spread last week, winning 6-0.
That's what I'm saying.
What are you looking for in this game, Sam?
I mean, I guess the only really interesting thing is Pittsburgh's side, right? You expect the Patriots to be similarly inept this week to previous weeks. Their defense is really good, but their offense is maybe the worst in the NFL right now. So with Pickett out, it's Trubisky. Does the offense continue to look, functional? Do they target the middle of the field? Just what does it look like generally with Trubisky in there versus Kenny Pickett? And can they bounce back from a week ago where they continued to target the middle of the field, but it was a bit of a come down from the first performance, right, where everything was good post Matt Canada?
Yeah, they're still not putting points on the board, which is the next step for the Steelers. They're moving the ball. They are attacking the middle of the field. Have a fun stat on that one. The last 2 weeks since Matt Canada has been fired, the Steelers have 25% of their middle of the field completions for the season, just over the last 2 weeks. So
a quarter of their middle of the field completions.
A quarter of their middle of the field completions
since firing Canada
for the season have come over the last 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
We're in week 14 right now. So they have explored all areas of the field. I am intrigued by Mitchell Trubisky. I'm always a little intrigued by Mitchell Trubisky because I thought last year he played all right for Pittsburgh with Matt Canada. Last week, small sample size, they were playing from behind, and he played all right. But this is the first time we've seen Trubisky, without Canada, new system. We'll see if he can do some damage here. But yeah, New England's defense is playing pretty well. They just can't move the ball offensively. Everyone's expecting a low-scoring game, but it's Thursday Night Football, so who knows what's going to happen here. New England's out Ramondre Stevenson, so even their ability to lean on the run game, it's going to be feeding Zeke here for the Patriots, as you mentioned on Sunday in creative ways.
Yeah, I mean, their offense, like the game plan initially was pretty depressing. It was just how many different ways can we figure out how to hand the ball off or throw a bubble screen, and then, Ramondre Stevenson goes down with the hip drop, ankle injury. Now it's just Zeke. It's like, okay, there's a pretty limited way that this offense can have success, right? Either somebody takes a bubble screen to the house or Zeke, the feeding of Zeke, actually has success, and that's just not likely.
All right, 6-point spread for Pittsburgh. Where are you leaning in this one?
Pittsburgh will cover 6 points, and the under will hit.
And the under?
Yeah. Under is the over-under, I think it's 30 points.
New England has...
even now?
What is it exactly? So
30.
It's 30.
Yeah.
Yikes. Every week I feel like New England can't be that bad. Like
my
Broncos analysis on the defense. It can't be that bad every single week.
Pittsburgh's going to win 15 to 3.
15-3.
Yeah.
New England's 2-10, minus 106 point differential. Is that worst in the NFL? No, it's just worst in the AFC. New England's sitting there holding on to the number 2 overall pick. So there's a lot of draft watch here going on Thursday Night Football. I'll take Pittsburgh again as well.
This is going to be a good Al Michaels watch game, Deep into the third quarter. Al's about ready to jump off the stadium stanchion.
He'll be keeping it. He took the under. He's probably taking the under.
Well, that's the thing. Like most of the fourth quarter will be updates on, where we are relative to the over-under.
Yes. I'm looking
in
forward
cryptic terms, because for some reason we still can't just nakedly say that on the broadcast.
The whole thing's brought to you by DraftKings and everything, but
right.
You can't talk about it. All right, so we're both. I'm going to go late. Take New England. They've had some red zone woes that I think will revert back here to at least keep it close within the 6 here.
Okay.
It'll be 9-4.
9-4.
Pittsburgh.
Is that scorigami?
I think it would be. As a parent, you've had to learn so many new skills to provide for your family, how to do copious amounts of laundry, meal plan for even the pickiest eater, and now how to protect your family's financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life provides an easy one-stop shop for your family's financial needs, offering high-quality term life insurance policies plus other financial solutions in one easy online hub. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You can go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, do we have a Discord game of the week or just get to the 2 biggest games here?
That's a good call. Let me look.
Let's not look and just get to the 2 biggest games here, and we could circle back if we need
too.
to. So Bills, Chiefs, and then Eagles, Cowboys. Let's start with the Bills at the Chiefs, 4:25 on Sunday. Obviously, what the NFL put this schedule together, and they said on this week, in Week 14, the fans are going to get to see Bills, Chiefs, and Eagles, Cowboys in back-to-back windows. Now, the Bills-Chiefs, I think it's still going to be a great game. Maybe it's lost a little luster because Buffalo's record is not great, but it still means a lot. And the Chiefs are 8-4, coming off some, an uneasy month or so in Kansas City where they're not looking like the Chiefs over the last few weeks overall. And then the Bills, who are defying the odds as a really productive team that cannot win games. Kansas City's favored by 1.5 here.
Yeah, I think it's still a really good game. It's just different to what people thought it would be.
The stakes are different.
Yeah,
I think.
This pre-season, this would have looked like a game that had the potential to be an AFC championship preview or number 1 versus number 2 in the AFC, all those kinds of things. Instead, it's like Buffalo kind of needs this game to stay alive, and Kansas City has been wobbling and not looking like themselves and are actually quite vulnerable in a game like this against a team such as Buffalo, who, despite losing a lot of games, continue to look, good enough to beat anybody and well capable of winning this type of game. So neither team is necessarily where we thought they would be, but they're both still AFC contenders and compelling matchup and all those kinds of things.
You could argue that it means just as much, but the stakes are different in this game, but it is just as important because it's really, instead of a battle for the number 1 seed, it's a sky is falling game for both teams. Because if Buffalo loses, they fall to 6-7. They're already the number 11 seed in the AFC. Several teams ahead of them sitting at 7-5. Teams that you still, you wouldn't want to play the Bills in the playoffs compared to some of the other teams ahead of them.
Yeah.
But if they fall to 6-7, they might be done for the year. And then with Kansas City, if they fall to 7-5, Kansas City Chiefs, they're going from battling for the number 1 seed to sitting there with, they'd be 8-5.
Yeah.
But if they're 8-5, they'd be sitting there with potentially Pittsburgh and Cleveland and the Colts and the Texans as far as record goes.
Yeah.
So it is a massive game, but the stakes are different because we thought this would be a battle for, number 1 seed and home field advantage, but it's a little different this time around.
Yeah, I don't even know that if the Chiefs make the playoffs, it's pretty much the same. It doesn't really matter. Like number one seeding and the bye week and the home field advantage, that's all great. But nobody doubts the fact that Kansas City, if they're in, has the capacity to go on the kind of run and make the Super Bowl and do whatever. The problem would be more the performance. If we have another game where Kansas City's offense doesn't look like itself, and by itself, I mean last year or previous years. Like if it has another game where it doesn't look right, and, you know, Mahomes, we said this on the show yesterday, right? Mahomes is held up as the gold standard of quarterback in today's NFL. That's the guy everyone wants. Everyone wants the next Mahomes, the best QB in the NFL. I mean, he isn't this year. He's grading like 10th or 11th or something. Like he's 10 grading points off where he can be and where he's been in the past and where the best quarterback in the NFL is. Mahomes and the Chiefs offense and the receivers, none of it looks like what we expect from this group. So if they have another game where that misfires, it's that's the problem, not the loss. Like if they lose a game 8-5, sure, that dumps them down with a bunch of other teams. But as long as they make the playoffs, I don't think that really matters. It's more if they don't find an offense at some point, that's the issue.
Yeah, as far as Kansas City goes, I am of the mind that most of the time, like obviously only one team wins every year, breaking news. And with every other team, you usually look back and you say, hey, here are these weaknesses that popped up during the regular season that were the reason we lost in the postseason. I wouldn't be surprised either way, right? If when the Chiefs get into the playoffs, if they make a run, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised. They've been there before. They've done that. But if they lose a game scoring 17 points, you're going to say, oh, of course. Yeah. We saw that all regular season. So that's what, to me, the margin for error for the Chiefs is just much smaller than it's been in previous years. And now their defense hasn't played as well in the last few weeks.
Well, what's really different, I think, is so previously it didn't matter for the Chiefs if they had a bad game or if things got away from them or if they were down, multiple scores. None of that mattered because you knew that this offense in an instant could click, put up 3 touchdowns, erase a 21-point lead, and keep on trucking, right? But now the way that they are underachieving, that's not happening. So actually they're way more vulnerable to things going wrong this year because they don't have that explosive ability to just click and erase all the negative that's already happened. Like the Chiefs at their best the last few years always reminded me of those 98 Vikings where it didn't matter what the score was because you knew that it would only take 2 minutes for this offense to connect, Randy Moss, big play, boom, 7, boom, Robert Smith, there's 14 points, done. We've immediately swung the game back in our direction. That was what the Chiefs were like, right? You put them in a 21-point hole in the first quarter, who cares? It just means we're going to go past crazy and do what we want to do anyway. But now they're not doing that. They're not able to score at will. They don't have the receivers to make that happen. Even if they did, defenses might be pivoting to take that away as a general concept. So things that go wrong for this offense are a much bigger problem, and any weaknesses they have are a bigger deal because they're not able to just offset them by, a Mahomes to Tyreek Hill connection that scores in a heartbeat.
So we know some of the history here. This is sometimes you get these weird runs from a scheduling standpoint. This is the 5th straight matchup they've had in Kansas City, 2 of which were from the playoffs, but the 3rd straight regular season matchup in Kansas City. They haven't played in Buffalo, I think, since 2020. The Bills have won the last 2 regular season games, 21 and 22. Both games in October, earlier in the year, where it was kind of like a early season statement game for the Bills. In 2021, though, that's the season where they had the epic overtime game, the 13-second game. Kansas City won 42-36, I believe it was. And Kansas City also won in the 2020 AFC Championship. So KC's gotten them in the last 2 playoff games, but the Bills have gotten them in the last 2 regular season games. You also have some injuries on the Chiefs side. Isaiah Pacheco didn't practice yesterday. Donovan Smith at left tackle, unlikely to play, I believe. Wanye Morris, rookie out of Oklahoma, likely to play left tackle. You put a non-model rookie out there, Sam, for Mahomes. Not just a non-model guy, like a don't look at him guy. Don't even look at him.
An avert your eyes guy.
Take him off the board. I'm just saying, might be some matchups to exploit here for the Bills. So the Bills have played, at least in the regular season, they've played pretty well against the Chiefs. It feels like one of those games where Buffalo could use Matt Milano. He's always been like the quarterback of that defense. They need Von Miller to step up. They need somebody to step up from a pass rushing standpoint in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean they also obviously need to stop shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, one of the differences I think between Buffalo and Kansas City this year is that Buffalo does still have the capacity to score at will, put up points, be explosive, have big plays. They've demonstrated that ability in a way that the Chiefs haven't really. But they keep shooting themselves in the foot with turnovers and just not even the volume necessarily. Like the Vikings have the volume thing with turnovers. The Bills, it's not as bad as that. It's just the timing has been atrocious.
Last time we saw the Bills, they're coming off a bye. 2 weeks ago, they lost to the Eagles 37-34, but they were, like other teams have done against the Eagles, in control of that game until they blew it in the second half. We've got 2 games with Joe Brady calling plays for Buffalo. Both games involved more Josh Allen running, more Josh Allen taking over, and that Allen in that Eagles game, it was like the superhuman Allen, other than the one time he misread coverage and threw the ball to James Bradbury, but he was running the ball like crazy, making big plays, and throwing the ball all over the yard. I'm expecting them to try to do the same.
I don't know if that's sort of a new play caller thing, Joe Brady versus Ken Dorsey, or if it's simply we have reached the point now where there is no margin for error, so we can't shelve you the way that we may have been trying to do earlier in the season. This concept of, we really need to take stuff off Josh Allen's plate so that he can be healthier and so that he doesn't get hurt as often and blah, blah, blah. Now it's like, dude, we need you. We would have loved to take things off your plate. Having said that, we're 500 staring, playoff elimination in the eyes. We actually need you to go out there and make plays. So I'm sorry, it's all on you again.
One more thing with the Chiefs. This is the 3rd straight game. I don't know if this matters, but I believe it's the 3rd straight game the team that they're playing has extra rest. So they played the Packers last week. Were coming off of a Thanksgiving game. I think the Raiders were coming off a bye, but the Bills are coming off of a bye, playing them here. I don't know how much that actually matters, but there's still this element of the Chiefs as defending champs getting the best from their opponents, right? They got a good, like the Raiders offense played well a couple weeks ago relative to what they could do. They got the best from the Packers. So it's the schedule doesn't look daunting for Kansas City, but they get every team's best, and this is probably their most difficult game for the rest of the year. If you're Kansas City, there's 2 ways this can go. You're either 8-5 coming out of this, or you get past this game and you say, okay, we've got Patriots, Raiders, Bengals, Chargers to finish the season. The path to the number 1 seed is actually smooth sailing. So huge game, pivotal for a lot of different reasons, just not what we expected.
Yeah, one other sort of critical injury issue or relevant player for this game, Drew Tranquill left the Packers game with a concussion. Generally, guys that have been concussed in one game miss at least a week and don't play the next week. If he misses, they're in the same situation as they were in that game, right down to the 3rd string middle linebacker.
Nick Bolton might be back this week, though, coming off of IR.
That would be huge.
Nick Bolton might be back this week. I know some Chiefs fans who don't like Nick Bolton. PFF grading likes Nick Bolton. He's been a very good run defender over the last couple of years, so I think that would be a big return for Kansas City.
It would be huge because otherwise they're back to that situation of relying on Jack Cochran and against a team like Buffalo where they could target the middle of the field with tight ends or even wide receivers, and B, you've got to concern yourself with not just the play call but the threat of Josh Allen at any given moment to either take off or be part of that design run game. So I would say this is a more important game than most to have a middle linebacker on top of his game.
Don't let the records fool you. 6-6 Bills versus the 8-4 Chiefs. Still a great game. Chiefs favored by 1.5. Just 1.5 at home. Where are you going with this one?
Right. I mean, that shows you exactly what you're saying, right? Like, forget the records. Vegas sees this as a very close game, a coin flip, if not the Bills are a better team because they're only slight underdogs on the road. I'm going to bank on, I guess, the Bills. I think they'll win this because they need it.
Yeah, I'm going to take Buffalo again. I don't love this. I take Kansas City almost every single week, no matter what the spread is. But Buffalo's done a nice job during the regular season the last couple of weeks. I'm going to lean on that trend, and I think, again, the Bills are better than their 6-6 record, and the Chiefs have shown some weaknesses this year. So I like Buffalo as well. All right, let's tell you about our Prize Picks lineup for this weekend. Who put this together? Eli?
Yeah.
Eli put this together. He's got notes.
He does have notes
in there too. So we're going with TJ Hawkinson, Vikings tight end, more than 52.5 receiving yards. Nico Collins, the Texans receiver, with more than 57.5 receiving yards. And then Adam Thielen, more than 55.5 receiving yards. So we're believing in a lot of yards for these guys. Producer Eli says Nico Collins has cleared this number in the last 3 games. And
I like that one.
I expect him to see more targets with Tank Dell done for the year.
I like that one. Now, it's against the Jets, so it's a tough matchup. But I like the logic of no Tank Dell. Nico Collins is going to be their primary target. He will probably get more than 57.5 yards. So
Hawk has gone more than this in 5 out of the last 6.
Also like that logic. I think that makes perfect sense.
And then Adam Thielen hasn't touched this number in quite a while, but Bryce Young likes him.
That's the one that's a little strange to me. But, this is Eli shooting for redemption.
I believe in Eli this weekend, and you can too. And you can play, because with basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. You can play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players, like rapper Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz. You can go to the Community Plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community every single week. And Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So you can go to prizepicks.com/PFFNFL, use code PFFNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/PFFNFL. Use code PFFNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. And we're all rooting for Eli for his Prize Picks lineup this weekend. All right, the other game of the week, Sunday Night Football, and then we'll circle back to Discord. Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys, rematch from a few weeks ago. Dallas is favored by 3.5. It's the second straight week the Eagles, who have the best record in the league, have been underdogs in their game. Last week, it gave me pause last week. I thought, hey, home underdog, Eagles? I'll take it. I was wrong.
How did that work?
The Niners absolutely waxed them. And it is interesting if the Eagles weren't a Super Bowl team last year, if they didn't have this track record of 2 years, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts winning all these games, would we be saying, they keep sneaking it out, they keep grinding it out, and the underlying metrics aren't great. They're a lucky 10-win team, now 10-2. It feels like Vegas is catching on to that. Dallas favored by 3.5 here. Both teams kind of trending in different directions.
The 2 Super Bowl teams from a year ago feel very similar. It's just that one of them has been punished by more losses in that run than the other. Like Philadelphia and Kansas City have both struggled to hit the level of play that they were at a year ago. And it's just that the Eagles haven't really run into too many losses off the back of that. But we've been sort of saying, all year long, hey, they haven't been playing as well as they did yet last year, but we know it's there because it's pretty much the same personnel across the board, particularly on offense. So it's in there. It's going to come back at some point, but maybe it won't. Like, this might just be the Eagles, which is a less good version than they were last season. And if that's the case, then they are vulnerable to a team like Dallas, who are better than they were a year ago and have the best pass rush in the NFL and have more weaponry for Dak Prescott and have Dak Prescott playing better than he was a year ago. I mean, the Cowboys are a better team and the Eagles are a worse team than they were a year ago.
The quote dunks were strong yesterday in the Twitter sphere.
Yeah.
Or the X sphere.
X sphere.
Twitter sphere is better. Did you see all the quote dunks on NFL Network analyst David Carr?
Yes, I did.
Who, I think he was trying to get at Jalen Hurts isn't the same quarterback because he's hurt.
Yes.
Which I think you can make a fair case for that. You probably can't make a fair case. You definitely can't.
No. For
the other part of it, which is that Jalen Hurts that Marcus Mariota would be an upgrade over Jalen Hurts.
He had
By the way, really quick, Marcus Mariota, former teammate of Derek Carr, and we know that David Carr's NFL Network analysis is usually directly tied to his brother and his friends.
Yes.
Like, he's the older brother who hangs out with his little brother and his friends and thinks they're all great. Like, that was the analysis on Marcus Mariota, I think.
He had a small kernel of a good point and then went out of his way to make it into a terrible point with everything he said about it. So his vague point was Jalen Hurts is injured, not playing the way Jalen Hurts played last season, and the Eagles actually need him playing like that in the playoffs. So sit him down now and get him healthy, because it doesn't really matter. Like I said with the Chiefs, it doesn't really matter if they're the 1 seed or the 7 seed, as long as they're in, right?
Right.
What you need is your quarterback playing at his strongest in January so that you can go on a run and win the Super Bowl. Now, he turned that, which I think is a fair argument to make, into the way Jalen Hurts is playing right now. Marcus Mariota is a better quarterback for this offense, particularly as a passer. You're like, well, that's just dumb.
The whole
right?
thing jumped the shark too quickly.
What you've done is taken a reasonable point and made it outright stupid, and people are just going to spend their entire time dunking on that as a point, rather than engage with the thing you were saying, which is a reasonable point to make. So, outstanding job by David Carr to take a sensible point and make it as stupid as humanly possible for a 90-second segment. Masterful work.
It's because it's his brother's friend. I mean, that's really the bottom. Like we say a lot of things. We might even say some stupid things.
Oh, we say some stupid things.
So I have sympathy for that, empathy even, for people who say stupid things. But he said too many words.
But
You're
that's
right.
one of those ones as well where it's not like, most of the dumb things we say are off the cuff. You got to fill, 2 hours of content. Your brain's got to work fast. Sometimes sometimes your mouth runs faster than your brain, and at the end of the show, you're like, I kind of wish I hadn't said that, but it's out there now, right? This was a pre-prepared segment that they debated, talked about, teed up, and then he went ham for 90 seconds, off the back of this point.
But you could see them being like, here's what I'm going to do, Mr. Producer on NFL Network. I'm going to make the point that the Eagles could sit Jalen Hurts and they'll be better in the long run. All right, David, good point. And then he just gets going, and then it's like he just went too far. And another thing, I would also add that Marcus Mariota is better than Jalen Hurts right now. Oh, no, what are you doing? You took it too far. So, yeah, he just took it too far. I will say there's certainly something different about the Eagles' offense this year.
The other thing, though,
that.
I don't know that even the initial point, which is the only thing I've given any credence to in this whole thing, I don't even know if that's true because...
it's certainly not slam dunk true.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts is playing fine, and it's not like he's even visibly... It's not like Joe Burrow early in the season, right, where he couldn't move, and you're like, him being out there might be the best option you have, though from what we've seen with Jake Browning, maybe it wasn't. But... it's a very, very diminished version of Joe Burrow. And it's like, there's a real question to be asked about whether there's any point in having him out there now. Jalen Hurts is still playing well, is still scrambling around, is still the bedrock of this offense. It's a pretty, it's a stretch to be like, he's hurting himself and the team to be out there right now. We need to sit him down.
Yeah, and there's two ways to look at, they had this run of, the Eagles were when they were down 10, they'd won their last 5 or 6 games, and it didn't matter. And I look at that two ways. It's like, don't fall down 10. I think that's why the underlying metrics are not as good for the Eagles. Last year, they used to get up early. They used to dominate, and then they would just kind of coast in the second half and win 28-14 or something, but they were up 28-0. This year, it's kind of been in reverse. I think they deserve credit for making those comebacks, though. Jalen Hurts, there's something to knowing how to operate when playing with a deficit, and how to get the ball to your playmakers and when to be aggressive and when to be conservative. And I think the Eagles and Hurts have done a really nice job of that. They got down last week. They ran into a juggernaut of the 49ers. I also wonder, we talked about the emotional aspect of this. The Eagles have just gone from playing Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo, and then the Niners last week. It is a run. You don't see runs like that in the NFL very often. There's a few teams like Dallas is about to start one where you're playing tough team after tough team after tough team. And I said this weeks ago, I think the Eagles and Dallas are close. Now it's from a Cowboys perspective. I predicted weeks ago that Dallas would win the game in Dallas. I think that's fair. Now the Cowboys, they have to answer the question, can you beat a good team?
Yeah.
And, again, I tend to poo-poo the touchy-feely stuff, the emotional stuff of football, or at least diminish it compared to others. But I am in agreement now. Dallas has to win one of these games. Dallas has to beat one of these good teams. So when they faced them in January, they said, we've done this before. We can do it again.
I don't even know. I mean, obviously their season, it's all about none of this matters until January, right? Like Dallas needs to show up in the playoffs and show they can beat a good team. This is definitely a really useful stepping stone in that direction, as was last week, by the way. Like up until last week, their season had been beat bad teams or lose against good teams. Nothing in the middle. that was a game in the middle where they ran up against Seattle, who's a pretty good team.
And was like the best team that they had seen in 5 or 6 weeks.
And gave them a couple of shots, gave them a couple of punches, and they were able to ride that, come back, win the game. So I think that was an important stepping stone. It was some kind of middle ground. This would be another one. But, yeah, they are going to go on a run now where it's like we don't really know what Dallas is. They play Philadelphia now, then at Buffalo, at Miami, against Detroit, and then at Washington for the final game of the season. We're going to have a pretty good idea what this team is by the end of the season, even if none of it matters until you get to January. So it's an important game. I don't know if it's that important. There's a few matchups, though, that are going to be fascinating. Obviously, Dallas's pass rush against Philadelphia's offensive line. I also wonder if what happened to Deron Bland against Seattle is a bit of a red flag for Dallas and a bit of a signal flare for the Eagles. Our guy Hawk was on NFL Network, I think.
I think he's on ESPN now.
Too. Maybe it was ESPN. It was one of the studio shows anyway. And he was, before the Seattle game, essentially saying that, Bland has the 5 pick sixes and it's all good, but like that's going to get him gambling too much. Just the fact that he wasn't even sort of highlighting, hey, based off the tape, he's gambling too much. He was like, the dude has 5 pick sixes. When you have 5 pick sixes, you're going to start jumping routes too much.
Something mentally is going to happen that you want to keep doing that.
Yeah, and then the Seattle game happened, and the dude got taken for like $169 or whatever it was, and multiple touchdowns and almost a third, but they took it away on review. Do the Eagles see that and go, I know this guy has 5 pick sixes and a bunch of good plays on the ball, but we can get him with double moves, or even not double moves, but like A.J. Brown can beat this guy one-on-one if we put the ball in his coverage.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't check the numbers on it, but it feels like Bland is really good at jumping out cuts, and not every pick six was an out cut or whatever, but it does feel like that's kind of his game. And Seattle was getting him on in cuts, posts and
even
slants.
Yeah.
And, like they were getting creating a ton of separation on those plays is what I'm saying. And if you do get A.J. Brown and Deron Bland, that's a huge advantage for the Eagles because that's his game.
Obviously, double moves are the most obvious way of like taking a guy that's gambling too much on that first move. But even like that first slant for DK Metcalf against him, like obviously that's not a double move, but I think those are the types of plays where he's being hyper aggressive on the first move, even if there isn't a second move. His angle or whatever is slightly different on the first move because he's going for the pick. He's not going to break it up. So if you can put just a bit more air under it or, target it just a bit further away, if you can clear him trying to break on the route, you can get in behind him. And then what should have been, a 15-yard play goes to the house because he's completely sacrificed, being able to tackle the guy in favor of going for the pick.
I will say, though, I tweeted it at the time, the part of the reason why coverage stats tend to fluctuate so much is how dependent they are on the quarterback. Like Geno Smith threw absolute dimes to DK Metcalf.
Yeah. I mean, it's risky.
3 or 4 of those.
Yeah.
Right? That first one that went 77 yards or whatever it was right on DK Metcalf. And then it's like, all right,
and not even just right
Bland
on
gets
him.
all the stats.
Yeah, not even just right on him, but like high and away.
Yes.
Like that's the thing. This is why this is a risky strategy, right? Because if that ball had bad ball location on it, if he just missed by half a yard, right? If instead of up here and high, right at his hands, it's slightly low and behind, that's where Deron Bland is. So you need to be guaranteed that your quarterback can put that ball exactly where he wants it if you're going to do this, because the whole point is he is driving on those first routes, the first move.
And not trying to diminish Deron Bland's awesome season in the pick sixes, but you're dependent on Sam Howell being a little late, Mac Jones being late and inside, right? Whoever the quarterbacks were each time, you're dependent on them being a little off, and then you go make the play, and credit for making the play. But yeah, you're dependent on the QB. All this said, I can't even believe we were having that Jalen Hurts discussion because last week he was the favorite to win MVP. He had led a massive comeback against the Bills, and not much had people weren't that concerned about the Eagles until one game. So huge game. We could talk about it all day, but we don't have all day.
No.
So Dallas by 3.5, Sam. Where you going?
All right, I'll do it once. I'll buy into Dallas beating a good team, goodish. They're going to win and cover.
I'm doing the same thing. I'll also take Dallas.
It's a one-time deal. If they don't get it done this week, I'm out forever.
Then you're not going to pick them against they have Buffalo next week.
Yeah.
Then who?
Buffalo, Miami,
and then the Lions.
Detroit, and then Washington away for the final game of the season.
At least 4 straight games. And at Washington's no cakewalk. They got waxed there last year in Week 18 as well.
Yeah. And by the way, if they win this game, they're in the hunt for that number 1 seed.
I think the Eagles would still have the tiebreaker technically, but they'd both have three losses. The 9, so the
they'd all be
an uphill
tied.
battle.
I mean, if San Francisco wins, if Detroit wins, like all of those teams would be on 10 wins. But the point being, Dallas would be in the tiebreaker mix with number 1 seed. They've gone the presumption all the way along this season has essentially been Philadelphia is getting the top seed or at least winning the division, and Dallas is going to have to do what they're going to do from a wild card spot. And we've been saying, hey, Atlanta versus Dallas, like. They could go this weekend, essentially, could jump themselves. Like, you just need some game to break in your direction over the final month of the season, and everything's going through Dallas.
Man, if Dallas loses this game and then they go to Miami a couple weeks from now and neither team can beat a good team, it's going to be a tie. It's going to be a tie, right? Predicted a Dallas-Miami tie in a few weeks. All right, it's going to be a great day of football. Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, Cowboys, plus a whole bunch of other games that we're going to go through.
Yeah.
A lot quicker right now. So Discord game of the week, Tampa Bay Bucks at the Atlanta Falcons. It's all on our Discord. You guys can all join. I dive in there every now and again and jump into some of those conversations.
The Bills-Chiefs was also a very close Discord vote.
This one's close because Atlanta's favored by 1.5. It's in Atlanta. Falcons won the first matchup 13-10 in Tampa Bay. And first place is on the line here in the NFC South.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking for in this one?
Man, I'm sort of done with the Falcons in terms of being interested in the offense. It's a kind of fun offense to watch, but I'm so fed up with the discourse of like Arthur Smith versus the world.
How do you not want to watch this offense? They ran a play with
Desmond
no
Ridder
right tackle a couple weeks ago and ran it there.
Yeah, because Desmond Ridder just kind of ruins it. I'm like, I want a good quarterback in this offense. Then I'm interested again.
He had a couple good plays. He had a couple good passes last week.
Yeah. And what about the rest of it?
Wasn't great.
Yeah.
Still a creative run game there. The matchup, I think, against the Bucs run defense is always a good one. Remember, in the first matchup, I would say the Falcons. So the Falcons kind of like let the Bucs have an opportunity to win in the end. This was the game where Desmond Ridder dropped a snap in the red zone and also was about to score. And Antoine Winfield made one of the plays of the season, tracking him down and forcing the fumble right at the goal line to save a touchdown. I mean, the Falcons, I think it was 13-10, right? They left potentially 2 touchdowns on the table. Like, they were an inch away from scoring 20, and, they played well enough to score 23, 27 points. So I think the Falcons are a better team.
16-13.
16-13, sorry. The Falcons did enough to score a lot of points against the Bucs. Bucs last week had to rely on Mike Evans. You never know if he's just going to take over a game like he did last week. That was unbelievable. Could be a Chris Godwin squeaky wheel game. There's a little controversy around Tampa Bay. He's been banged up with injuries. Didn't see any targets, but he also had a touchdown on an end around. Todd Bowles made some statement that he just, they were subbing him in and out, so he didn't get targets, but he was playing the same number of snaps as he always does.
And his wife called him out for it.
And his wife called him out.
Chris Godwin's wife, not Todd Bowles' wife.
Correct. Chris Godwin's wife was calling out Todd Bowles for making excuses that weren't valid for why Chris Godwin wasn't getting targets. So it could be that game where Godwin gets, 12 to 15 targets, squeaky wheel, potentially. But I think, to me, that's the Bucs strategy to win this thing. They'd like to run the ball, they'd like to do all these various things, but you got to lean on Godwin and Evans in this one, and then trust your run defense, make the Falcons one-dimensional. They have the pieces to at least to pull this one off.
Worst graded game of the season for Kalijah Kancey the last time these two teams played. Kancey, this sort of quick, penetrating, disruptive defensive tackle. Atlanta with that powerful offensive line and, creative run game. It's a bad matchup for him. I'm curious to see if a second look at it gives him a better shot or better performance overall. But I'll be watching Kalijah Kancey.
I like it. Good matchup. See, that's a good quick analysis on the game. Now we can pick it. Falcons by 1.5. Where are you going with this one?
Okay. Let's buy into Atlanta.
All right, give me Tampa Bay because they're going to make a little run here in the NFC South, or make it interesting in the NFC South. The division right now, the Falcons are 6-6 in first place. It's Bucs and Saints tied at 5-7. So if the Bucs win this game, I don't know who has the tiebreaker between the Bucs and Falcons. They'll have split the season, but they'll both be tied for first at 6-7 if the Bucs win this. So I got them covering the 1.5 and pulling the mini upset here in Atlanta. All right, let's go game by game through the rest of it. Los Angeles Rams at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens favored by 7 at home. Rams are sitting at 6-6. They're currently, 7 seed in the NFC? 8 seed in the NFC, right behind the Packers. Again, I'll reference that game for the rest of the year. And the Ravens battling for the number 1 seed. They're sitting there at 9-3, tied with the Dolphins for the best record in the NFC. Ravens favored by 7 here at home.
Yeah, and the Ravens now, one of those teams in the AFC with a real shot at the number 1 seed. I think they've been doing an impressive job with that. They have dealt, I think, okay without Mark Andrews in that offense since he got injured. It's been fine. Like Isaiah Likely has picked up some of the slack. They've gotten some play out of some other guys as well. But it is by necessity a different offense than it was when Andrews is the number 1 guy. They're very different skill sets, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, and you're not going to see the same kind of workload. So they are, I think, spreading it around a bit more. You look at last game against the Chargers, Rashad Bateman had 5 targets, Zay Flowers had 7, Odell Beckham had 5, Likely had 4. Like, they are spreading the ball around a lot more than they did or needed to when they had Mark Andrews.
That's the best thing about this Ravens offense this year, right? Todd Monken coming in. You've got a different running game. You've got the ability to they lean into playmaking center Tyler Linderbaum, getting him in space. But it's a more versatile run game. There's a bigger variety of playmakers, and you still have Lamar Jackson to lean into, right? So when we saw them a couple weeks ago against the Chargers, the offense was inconsistent, but when it came down to crunch time and they needed to run the clock out, it's a couple Lamar Jackson keepers, Zay Flowers on an end around. They have, as I've said before, they've got the power run game, they've got the mobile quarterback, they've got a guy like Zay Flowers who's difficult in space.
That might have been Zay Flowers' best game, the Chargers game.
Yeah, I agree. So
people are still mad about our take with Zay Flowers.
Who's mad?
People. The people.
I mean, he hasn't been that different from, again, there's scheme fit. I think he's gone to a place that's leaning into a skill set very well.
Yeah. I think
but he also, he's not that, we had Tank Dell and Josh Downs ahead of him or in that range or whatever, and that was they've been similarly productive, but in different ways, right? They're all small receivers with different skill sets. I think we've seen all of that so far in the NFL.
A lot of people were big mad about my comp of Dante Hall adjusted for inflation. I still think that's pretty good. I know you might be – it depends on the power of your adjustment for inflation. Like, teams did not have any idea what to do with the Dante Hall back when Dante Hall was playing, which is one of the reasons why Peter Warrick didn't have an amazing NFL career, because teams just don't know what to do with that. Back then, they do now. Like, Peter Warrick in today's NFL probably looks a lot like Zay Flowers, as does Dante Hall. The point being, teams are so much better now at being able to take a guy like that, put him in the slot, give him design screens, give him end arounds, jet motions, all this kind of stuff that didn't really happen or wasn't as dangerous back then because of the formations and the way teams are playing defense and offense. So his numbers are going to look completely night and day from Dante Hall, because Hall had a few years where he was used as a receiver, and they were like, this doesn't work, forget it, he's a punt returner. But I think the point being, the adjusted for inflation part, he is, I think, a similar skill set of player that's just being used way better, and probably has a bit more to his game in terms of being able to play in different roles as well. But I honestly don't think that's a bad comp still, even if the production is going to be wildly different. Yeah,
Zay's on a 3-game stretch. He's his best 3-game stretch of the season. I think he's developing a little bit. I would also say I think a lot of his big plays have been scramble drill plays, which is fine. Part of the issue is I don't think he was a great route runner. I think he's fine in space, but he has a lot of plays to nowhere, right? He gets fed a lot of plays that don't go anywhere. I mean, look, he's been fine. But I think the development the last few weeks, too, is encouraging for the Ravens, as they'll need to lean on him more with Mark Andrews out. On the other side, how do the Rams pull this upset potentially? Oh, really quick, the Ravens defense. You know how the The Browns defense had been number 1 in EPA per play pretty much since week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And in their own world, in a chart, if you're charting that, it's creeping closer now. The Ravens are right behind them. It's minus 0.18 for the Browns, minus 0.16 for the Ravens. Ravens, so number 2 in EPA per play against defensively. So Baltimore is closing in on being the best defense in the league against a Rams offense that I think has done a really nice job with their run game. Kyron Williams has been fantastic, but they've been scheming it up, creating numbers advantages for him. They're going to need, I think, the run game to shorten it, but also Stafford playing special ball, 4 or 5 big-time throws like he did last week.
The stat that jumps out for the Ravens defense is still that yards per pass attempt allowed. Like, they are allowing 4.4 yards per pass attempt. The next closest team is the Browns, and they're at 5.2. So the Ravens are nearly a full yard better than any defense in the NFL this year in the pass game, which is absurd.
Yeah, and for Baltimore, I think it's just been a few years of making good decisions, getting guys like Kyle Hamilton and leaning into their versatility. So I think it's a fun matchup. Remember last year when Sean McVay was using like Ben Skoranek as a fullback?
Yeah.
And it's like, here's some creative stuff the Rams are doing, but it doesn't matter because everything else is bad. This year, everything else, Stafford's healthy, line's playing better. The creative stuff they're doing is giving them an advantage. I think it's impressive that the Rams are sitting here at 6-6, given their roster. I think this will be a challenge, though, going up against Baltimore.
Just in the last couple of weeks, though, Stafford's numbers have finally started to tick in the direction that his play has been all season long. Yep. Remember earlier in the year, it was like, how the hell does Stafford only have like 8 touchdowns when he's been throwing dimes left, right, and center? Well, he got on a run of 4 straight games with only 1 touchdown, 3 of which were offset by 1 interception, right? And then last week, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions against the Browns defense. The week before that, Arizona, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. So just in the last 2 weeks, he's accounted for almost half of his passing touchdowns in the season and not offset that by a bunch of turnovers. So if that continues for Stafford, that's more like it.
83.6 grade. 83.7 grade for Stafford, number 11 in the NFL. He's having one of his best seasons, but yeah, the stats are, like as you said, starting to catch up. And this is the lowest, it's got to be the lowest turnover-worthy play rate he's ever had.
Yeah.
1.8%.
Easily.
So Stafford's playing really well. We'll see if he can elevate that offense with Puka Nacua and those young receivers. 7 points, though. Where are you going with this one?
It is a lot of points, but I'm going to go with the Ravens still.
Yeah, give me the Ravens at home. They waxed Detroit and Seattle at home, if that means anything. NFC teams going into Baltimore this year, losing by 1 million. So we'll say that's going to happen again. I'll take the Ravens to cover the 7. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland favored by 3. Of course, the big story here, Trevor Lawrence getting rolled up on the other night. It's a sprained ankle. It doesn't look like he's going to play this week.
So they haven't ruled it out, but I would be pretty shocked if he did.
I mean, the next day they had the hashtag agent tweet or whatever where it's like Trevor Lawrence is going to do 24/7 rehab and do whatever he can. And then the next day it's like, we don't think he can go this week, but he's going to do whatever he can to be back for the Ravens game in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's probably C.J. Beathard against Joe Flacco in Cleveland.
It's not that it's not a big game. Like, this is a pretty important game for AFC playoff seeding, all those kinds of things. But it's like, is it really worth risking it? Like, wait another week. Like, just give him a shot. Like, that was a pretty bad sprain. It's obviously, like, it ended up being sort of quote unquote just an ankle sprain. But the fact that, like, he couldn't put any weight on that immediately after it happened, tried to stand up, couldn't, had to just and then had to hobble his way to the x-ray room and stuff. Like, that feels like you need more than a week.
It was a high ankle. I mean, the high ankle sprains are historically 3-4 week injuries, maybe 2 to 4 weeks, depending on. I think that's what Mahomes had last year in the playoffs, and they're always different degrees. And
right.
Mahomes, got whatever happened in the locker room at halftime and came back in the same game against the Jags, but he was still hobbled the following week against Cincinnati. It is a multi-week injury that will affect things, especially a guy like Lawrence who's so mobile.
That's the thing. Lawrence is a quarterback that has been, his mobility, his capacity to run around, to move is a pretty big part of his game. If he can't do that, do you really want him against the Browns pass rush? Maybe Myles Garrett isn't quite the same force he was while he's dealing with his shoulder injury, but still, that's a pretty risky defense to be exposing him to if he's not 100%. just because he's your best option. It's a massive, drop off. Obviously, if you're going Trevor Lawrence to C.J. Beathard, but it might be worth just sacrificing a game rather than risking your quarterback. Again, like the Eagles, they need him in January, not necessarily right now.
Yeah, the problem is, he's not going to play in this game, I don't think. But the problem is January. I'm not saying it's all slipping away, but this is a tough game against the Browns.
Yeah,
they have the Ravens coming up on Sunday Night Football.
That's what I mean.
In a couple weeks. So
it's not a game that you can just sacrifice and say, to hell with it, we don't need this one. Like, they could really do with this one, but it's not. I don't think it's worth risking Lawrence to try and save it.
They also had Christian Kirk go down with an injury. He is out already. He's going to miss some time. Per Doug Peterson, the rest of the injury report is a lot of skill position players. Travis Etienne, Zay Jones, even C.J. Beathard sitting there with a shoulder injury, questionable. So Jacksonville's really banged up. And then as far as Cleveland goes, I mentioned that the defense has come back down to earth over the last month or so, or whatever that time period is. Remember, there was a point where we said, hey, if QB can just go in and manage the game and not turn it over, not have they had the two lowest graded quarterbacks in the NFL at one point in DTR and PJ Walker. Joe Flacco played better than that the other day, but the defense has not been as good, perhaps coinciding with Myles Garrett playing injured as well.
Yeah, absolutely coinciding with that. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco goes out there and has that efficient game that you're talking about with the addition of the one patented Joe Flacco lunatic play. At a
bad time.
Yeah.
Obviously, when they were backed up, it led to the Rams going up a score. But yeah, if Flacco could play, if Flacco gives them that game every week, and especially this week against Beathard, that should work. But who knows?
Week, yes.
You never know. We just saw Jake Browning look like Drew Brees the other night. So,
but it is it's this classic. Joe Flacco is now he's a perfect game managing quarterback, with the exception of there will almost certainly be one, if not more, terrible play in there. So it's can you still be a game manager with one awful, boneheaded, probable turnover in there? That's what you're asking for the Browns. And it's with the previous defense, probably. With the current version, maybe.
Jags defense got absolutely carved up on Monday Night Football against Jake Browning. Give them credit. Give Browning credit. But the Jags defense had been one of the best in the league, one of the best coverage grades. They've had issues basically back-to-back weeks.
And nothing complicated either. Players like Tyson Campbell just got wrecked individually, one-on-one.
If you look at the Jags team coverage grades for the season, it's pretty hilarious, actually. Their three worst coverage grades all came against Kyle Shanahan and friends. So the Niners and the two Texans games. So Shanahan and Slowick carving up the Jags defense.
Slowick.
And then the Bills and the Bengals. But yeah, they have had games, this Jags defense, where they held Kansas City to 17, and they did a really nice job contesting every throw. And then there's games like the other night where it wasn't so good. Browns, we saw a little connection between Joe Flacco and Elijah Moore. So I think it'll be a good game here, man. Browns by 3. Could be a weather game here, too. Cleveland, December. I need a weather report.
You need a weather report.
Yeah. I think it's going to be low scoring.
The weather report is 45 and light rain.
Light rain?
Yep, light rain.
That's enough. That's all you need in Cleveland.
If C.J. Beathard is the starting quarterback, I think the Browns by more than 3 is an absolute, not a guarantee because, it's Joe Flacco, but pretty likely. So, Browns.
I see a 77% chance of rain.
It's only light, though. Light rain.
Some light rain is likely. That's also what I'm saying. Wind 10 to 20 miles an hour. Yeah, give me the Browns. I'm not buying into Beathard as a backup. It's going to put a little challenge on Jacksonville. They're a game up on Houston, right, in the AFC South. But this tough game this week and then coming up, like I said.
Yeah, losing this game would be very bad for Jacksonville. Losing last one was obviously they were in the number 1 seed contention. Then they drop out. Now they're one game away from really dropping down the rankings or dropping right into the pack in the AFC.
All right, got to tell you about our friends over at AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. We drink it every day here on the PFF NFL podcast. Love it because it's got all those daily nutrients that we need to kick my morning off with a little AG1, pour it in with some water, chug that thing down, and I'm feeling great for the rest of the day. So it gets you all those nutrients that you need. AG1 because I don't have the best diet. So I need those nutrients, 75 of them to be exact, 75 high-quality ingredients that give me everything I need to support energy, focus, strength, and clarity. As a former athlete, I know how to take care of my body. I'm not doing it as well right now. I know how to, though. And this is like the one thing I do well, which is my AG1, making sure I have everything I need for the day. It's these micro habits that deliver macro benefits. And that's why we do it daily. Cover all those nutritional bases every single day. Also costs less than $3 a day, which is a pretty good deal if you ask me. It's a really effective daily habit with high-quality sourced ingredients. A win-win for all of us here on the PFF NFL podcast. So, for comprehensive solutions, what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to drinkag1.com/PFF. That's drinkag1.com/PFF. Go check it out right now.
Like that. I'm acutely aware of everything I'm doing wrong right now. As a former athlete.
But this is the one thing. This is the one thing I'm doing well. All right, let's go Indianapolis Colts at the Cincinnati Bengals. Right down the street here. Colts are favored by 1 as they come into town, into Cincinnati. We got Jake Browning coming off of. As I was watching that game, Sam, first up, kudos to Jake Browning. That was outstanding. Unbelievable game. Very impressed. I think I was even more impressed by his post-game comments.
Oh yeah,
where it's
I didn't watch those. What did he say?
Like paraphrasing, but he was, it's like I'm not like I've been preparing for this. Basically like I'm not surprised.
Did the Nate Diaz?
Yeah,
I'm not surprised by the way.
This is what I do. But I thought this was the best random awesome performance I've seen since Taylor Heineke playoff game against the Bucs.
Right, going toe-to-toe with Tom Brady.
So that's where it's like, let me be the wet blanket of reason here. On one hand, it could be the Bengals have found something in Jake Browning, and you also still have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and you've got playmakers to throw to, and Browning did a good job getting them the ball, and the Bengals are going to be dangerous going forward. On the other hand, Taylor Heineke's had games like this, and it didn't necessarily spark his career or anything. It just happened to be one random thing. So kudos to Jake Browning, 80% plus completions, leads a overtime comeback, handled adversity. It was unbelievable. Now I'm fascinated to see if this was a trick. He didn't look anything like this 2 weeks ago,
right,
against the Steelers,
or in training camp.
Did the Bengals find something in Browning's skill set as a guy who doesn't have a great arm, but was throwing precision down the field in this game?
We talked about this a little bit on the show that you're not on coming out of that game.
Tuesday.
My analysis of that performance was, it felt like the game that every coach is chasing when they have the non-starter, the backup, as I believe they're called, when they're starting a game because the starter's gone down, right? It's like you start off and you try and get him those easy completions and the run game going, and you try and get him into the game, right? So that he finds his comfort level and he gets, happy with how things are going, and then he starts playing his game. This felt, and most of the time it doesn't work because the guy is ultimately a backup, and the way that you do that, the easy stuff, almost undermines the entire concept, right? Because it makes the defense's life easier because you don't have to worry about the deep bomb because you're not doing that because you're too scared and yada yada. This felt like it worked. They actually ran the easy stuff, and Browning sort of felt his way into the game, and then by the second quarter, the dude was like in the zone. And it's like, they did. It worked. They got him comfortable. He's now in a flow state where he can't do anything wrong. And they've actually successfully tapped into this like innate quarterback confidence that's there somewhere for all of these guys. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the NFL. But they found it with the first quarter of play calling. And then once they hit it, Browning just couldn't miss for the rest of the game.
That's where, over the last couple of years, when I've tried to compliment Zach Taylor, not necessarily because of in-game management or anything that they do schematically that is special, like you don't put him on Shanahan's level or anything. There's something to the Bengals stepping up at times when you don't expect, or, again, as I've mentioned a million times on the show, every time they had a bad performance over the last couple of years, they've bounced back and been great the next week. Now, Joe Burrow's been the X factor there. But to me, this is just another notch in the cap, I guess, notch in the belt, whatever we're putting notches in, for Zach Taylor. And everything that they've done to be able to kind of work around Jake Browning. And as you said, kind of like build him up, and all of a sudden it looks like early career Washington Jake Browning, which was really promising. And it also, every time now a quarterback has a game like this, and because of Brock Purdy, Browning's a 4-year starter who probably was as good as a freshman as he was as a senior at Washington, much like Brock Purdy was. And it just makes you think, is this something here? So I'm fascinated to see what the encore is. It's his third start. First one didn't go great. Second one seemed to play to what he likes to do a little bit more. And we'll see if the Bengals can build off that. Meanwhile, the Colts are sitting there with a better record, 7-5, with three other teams in the AFC. Currently the 7 seed, and Shane Steichen maybe going under the radar here with the job that he's done in Indy, because it's 2 backup quarterbacks here, and we're complimenting the Bengals for having one good game with their backup. Well, the Colts have been playing with Minshew the whole year, who I think is a very good backup, but they've been overcoming some of his decisions this year to be 7-5 and battling for a playoff spot here.
Yeah, I mean, he also stopped, making quite as many catastrophic decisions. He's gone from having, the worst turnover-worthy play rate in history to having one that's just mildly bad. So
that needed to revert back anyway, right?
Right. I mean, he was having the individual quarterback version of the early season Denver Broncos defense. We were like, this can't possibly maintain the way it is. It's insane. That's like eased off to just regular bad. The funny thing about the Browning thing, though, is I don't think that's in any way repeatable, this idea of somehow they just tapped into the thing that every coach aims for when the backup goes in the game. Like, let's try and get him comfortable, and then when he's comfortable, you can get his best version, right? They did it somehow, but I don't think it was it was obviously by design. That's what they were shooting for, but it's the same thing that every team is shooting for every week, right? It's like your thing of getting pressure with your front four, right? You try and do that every single week, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's nothing they did special to manufacture that. They nailed it.
But maybe the confidence is there now, and he's shown that he can do it, and he can, spread the ball around and make plays.
I feel like that's an every game thing. It's like the thing that, some people need to take a hit before they're in the game, and they need it early, otherwise they're never going to be in that zone. I don't know what that is mentally as human beings, but there's something that sort of triggers your, natural responses for how you're supposed to be in a game. And some guys need to take a hit. Browning apparently needed to have a really nice first quarter, and then he's like, I'm there now. I'm in.
Now, the bigger side of the ball might be Colts offense and this Bengals defense that has quietly struggled this year. Maybe not all that quietly if you've watched them, but worst coverage grade in the NFL right now, 5th worst EPA per play for Cincinnati. Disappointing year. And again, we spend so much time talking about Cincy's offense. Maybe we underrated the fact that they lost both of their starting safeties. The back sevens had some injuries and some inconsistency there. I think the Colts, the way Minshew's been playing, they can run the ball. They've got, you never know if you have the Alec Pierce game where he's going to flip the field on a couple like the Colts have.
I feel like, again, that's unlikely.
It might be, but Michael Pittman's been extremely dependable. I think the Colts will have some success offensively against the Bengals here.
Yeah, the Bengals have had some good performances individually. I think getting Trey Hendrickson back looking like Trey Hendrickson again was a big development for them. He'd had a couple of rough weeks after that knee injury where he was playing but clearly not himself. DJ Reader had a great game. Mike Hilton had a great game. One of their biggest problems really has been model guy DJ Turner as a rookie corner hasn't been playing particularly well.
Thanks. Yeah, there's been some good and bad plays in there. Made some good plays against the run the other night.
He did. He's had some good plays. It's just there's been quite a lot of bad plays as well.
Yeah.
That's been problematic.
It's funny. He was one of those guys where the data said yes, but my heart was saying, You know, I didn't love the film.
Yeah.
But the data said he's good. All right, let's make a pick in this one. Colts favored by 1 in Cincinnati. 7-5 Colts against the 6-6 Bengals.
Yeah, Colts.
Wow.
Look, that Jake Browning at the game of his life.
One more week.
I'm
also going to take the Colts because for the fans.
For the fans?
For the guy that comes in, you pick against the Colts and keep us against the world. Colts. No, I'm impressed with what they've been doing. So I think they come in here as 1-point favorites and they can win it. I need one more week to see the Browning experience here and see if they can replicate that. Is that fair?
Sure.
All right. Houston Texans at the New York Jets. Texans favored by 3.5. C.J. Stroud going up against this Jets defense. And then Zach Wilson is back. Another dramatic week.
A lot of
for
drama.
the number 13 seed in the AFC out of 14.
A lot of drama, a lot of reports.
15 seed.
A lot of sources, a lot of upset Aaron Rodgers, a lot of drama.
If you missed it, early in the week, there were multiple reports that the Jets wanted to go back to Zach Wilson and that he didn't know if he was going to accept the offer.
Yeah.
And Tim Boyle, who started the last 2 games, got released on Tuesday, got replaced by Brett Rippon. Now, the irony there, those are the only 2, Tim Boyle and Brett Rippon are the only 2 quarterbacks in the NFL this year to start a game on Sunday and then get released on Tuesday.
That's how bad they were.
I mean, I don't even know if Tim Boyle was that bad, but they did not like the Tim Boyle experience,
No.
the Jets.
The Tim Boyle experience felt a little bit like the Chris Streveler experience last year, where it's like, that we can't have that. Like, that's not going to work. I'm sorry.
Streveler came in and underthrew a pass that was open by 50 yards.
Yeah.
Underthrew
By
it.
like 15 yards.
It got caught, and Fireman Ed in the crowd lost it.
Yeah.
Crazy excitement for Streveler because he completed a wide open pass.
Yeah.
Reminded me of Bailey Zappi completing a wide open pass in Gillette.
But like, there are some times where you watch a guy play and you're like,
That can't work.
right, we can't have this. I'm sorry. I appreciate your effort, but it's like the classic thing they say, we appreciate everything you've done. We wish you the best for the future. That's our takeaway from this game. Thanks. I appreciate all the hard work you put in, but we're going to go in a different direction. So, yeah, that's what they did with Tim Boyle. The Zach Wilson thing was kind of funny. It's like, it's not like he has a choice. I mean, this is your job. You go in the game if we tell you to go in the game. This is not an optional thing. We pay you a large amount of money to get your ass on the field and play football.
The poor guy just wants to hold a clipboard and collect a paycheck. That's the dream.
And not, harm his draft stock, or not his draft stock, his, future employment any further than he already has by playing football.
So here's the deal. There's a lot of interesting storylines beyond Zach Wilson. So Wilson comes back in. You have C.J. Stroud, who's been unbelievable as a rookie, as we all know, going up against the Jets defense that has made every quarterback look bad,
Right.
basically.
That's the interesting element of this game, like the Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers crap aside.
And we could talk about that in one sec, but we also have Sauce Gardner versus Derek Stingley, same field, right? The 3rd and 4th pick from last year's draft. The Texans took Derek Stingley, who's hot right now, coming off a 90-plus grade, 4 interceptions in the last 3 games. Sauce Gardner went pick number 4. He's been better to this point, but Stingley looks like he's trending in the right direction to be a fantastic corner. So it's C.J. Stroud's biggest test. You got Sauce and Stingley. What else? What are your thoughts on that side of the ball there, Texans against this Jets D?
I was just looking up, actually, the grades for those second-year corners. Obviously, Deron Bland is number 1 with his 5 pick sixes, et cetera. But Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley, and Trent McDuffie, the 3 sort of top-end corners in that class, are all grading really well, having excellent second seasons.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to trash the model for DJ Turner, we have Sauce was as good as it gets in the model. Stingley and McDuffie are all 90th percentile plus. And then I'm going to go finagle it to make sure that Deron Bland looked good. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, yeah.
No, he did.
They were also
Bland
all
had good, just regular PFF grading his senior year.
That's the thing. They were all also, consensus first-round picks and top prospects. It was
Whatever.
a fairly open goal for the model there.
Yeah, but there's also plenty of corners that were drafted high that were not model approved.
Okay.
They didn't work out very well.
Yeah, look, Stroud going up against that Jets defense is going to be fascinating. The Jets defense is amazing. I know they get, there've been some games where they've given up some big plays or some points. I still think a lot of that is just the game gets away from them because they're on the field all the time and the offense stinks and they're frustrated. And, but that defense is so good when it's playing at its best. So seeing them against Stroud is going to be fascinating. Stroud really looks like Georgia C.J. Stroud the entire time now, basically. Like, even when he does something wrong where he makes a mistake, he comes back and it's like it didn't affect him. He just keeps swinging and generally offsets it, generally redeems himself with the next drive or whatever. Couldn't be more impressed with what we're seeing from Stroud, that offense as a whole. Really excited to see what it looks like against the Jets.
I told you, I'm watching Stroud straddle the line. Just got to be careful. That the most impressive things that he was doing early in the season was sitting in the pocket, going through reads, throwing the ball accurately, just going boom, 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 doing, veteran type of stuff early as a rookie. Now I think his confidence is through the roof. He's moving around more than ever and doing all the. But like last week, he had some big plays. He left a lot of plays on the table last week. I want to just see him continue to hit the plays that are there and then make sure that the out of structure stuff is at the right time, that it's timely. And that's when Stroud, is special. That's when he becomes a star. I want to see that consistency. And it's a challenge against the Jets here because it's tight window throws, man. It's a tough pass rush. And then on the other side, Will Anderson's having a good run too here, the rookie edge rusher going up against this Jets offensive line. I think this Texans defense is, going to give the Jets problems like every other team seems to. So where are you going with this one? 3.5, the Texans are favored.
I'm going to buy into the Jets. I think this game will either be a close Jets victory or it will be a blowout for the Texans where the Jets defense kind of gets frustrated and ill-disciplined and gives up some plays. Like, it's either going to be very close in their favor or they just get wrecked because I think that defense is, every week, that defense is going to be on a precipice of frustration where if the offense craps itself, like, the defense is going to lose its rag and, give up.
One more matchup to watch here. Bobby Slowick, PFF Bobby, and Robert Saleh. Former teammates,
I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
They came through the ranks together.
Colleagues, that's the
colleagues, co-workers even.
Yeah.
They came through the ranks together. And if we're going to go through the Shanahan tree, and now look, I know Mike McDaniel also faced Saleh a few weeks ago and everything, but Shanahan has this knack for beating up his old colleagues and co-workers, right?
Yeah.
And knowing the ins and outs of those defense. Can Bobby break the Jets defense with a couple passes down the field? Can they sneak a couple explosives in there against this Jets defense? Just something to keep an eye on. I'll take the Texans to cover the 3.5.
Or the flip side, right? Like, does Robert Saleh, is he like the one coach that actually has an idea how to slow down this system?
No, because it's not PFF Saleh.
Okay.
It's PFF
Not
Bobby.
PFF Saleh.
It's not PFF Robert.
It's not.
PFF Bobby's going to have the edge. So give me the Texans to cover the 3.5. But yeah, that's going to be a sneaky fun game. And I'm always intrigued by Zach Wilson. All I'm going to say, the same way a switch flipped for Jordan Love the last few weeks. Does that ever exist for a guy like a Zach Wilson, for a Mitchell Trubisky, guys that are very talented and were, top 5 picks? Do they flip a switch at any point? Just never know.
I was just looking up what Saleh's record is against Shanahan offenses.
How'd you do?
Well, last year it was pretty good. He held Miami to 17 and then 11 in 2
He didn't
games.
face Tua either game last year, though.
Right.
Faced
That's
their backups.
that's the one element there. This year it's not good because they gave up a ton of points, 34 to Miami a couple weeks ago.
One was a Hail Mary pick six, though.
Yeah, but still, like it's not like they dominated that offense. That was the game where their defense basically gave up.
See what I'm saying?
Got beat.
That's why I'm.
But they had, my point, my overall point was that he hasn't actually played him that many times.
Right. All right, we're gonna go quick here.
Yeah.
Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. Saints favored by 5.5. Who you picking? That's our game preview.
Yeah.
Derek Carr is still in concussion protocol. Taysom Hill's all banged up. We could see Jameis Winston against Bryce Young.
You would hope so. I mean, what is the point in Derek Carr at this point in the season? Like, the dude's getting a battering, and it's not like there's a discernible
What do you mean,
difference.
what's the point?
It's like the massive difference between Derek Carr and Jameis Winston. Just let Jameis cook.
No.
Back off and let Jameis cook.
Jameis has not been cooking. He's been cooking for the defense here the last few weeks.
Which
Last
means
few
he's
times.
due.
The Jameis is due argument.
Jameis
Year
is
7.
due a breakout game. Not season, game.
Derek Carr's fine as long as they have Jimmy Graham in the red zone.
Jimmy Graham.
They've got their red zone answer in Jimmy.
Uh-huh.
Alvin Kamara running hard last week. Stupid Saints. Trying to figure out the Saints. Not fun, but they're favored by 5.5 against the Panthers. They were one of the first teams to make Bryce Young look really bad this year, back in week 2.
Yeah.
And it's continued.
I mean, look, the Carolina receivers don't get a ton of separation at the best of times. The New Orleans defensive backs play physically and aggressive and like to beat up on receivers and
not a good
disrupt the
matchup.
timing anyway. It isn't. It's not a good matchup generally. They have enough pass rush to cause problems for a bad Panthers offensive line. The play calling hasn't been fixed with the change in coaching. Like, this idea of anything getting fixed midseason for that team is probably pretty slim. I struggle to see how the Panthers are going to have much success.
That's great analysis. I don't think I want to add much to it. I mean, that's it. I mean, the Panthers have 1 or 2 drives a game where they look pretty good. They created a couple explosives against the Bucs, and one drive they ran the ball pretty well last week. But again, I think the Bucs were down to 4th and 5th string linebackers. I think the Saints defense is going to give the Panthers some problems. So covering the 6 in the dome, you going to take the Saints?
Yes.
I'll take the Saints as well. Let's cover the 5.5. Let's go Detroit Lions at the Chicago Bears. The Lions are favored by 3 on the road here. Remember, just a couple weeks ago, Bears had the lead into the fourth quarter, 2-score lead into the fourth quarter. Lions came back to pull off the win. It was the first of Jared Goff's bad stretch of 2 or 3 games where he kept turning the ball over. Didn't see the field very well against the Bears. I called it just a straight-up vision problem. He was just not making good decisions for whatever reason in this game against the Bears. Had 3 interceptions, 3 turnover-worthy plays in that game. Weren't all the same plays, but either way, the Bears did a nice job. But the Lions found a way to win in the end. In Chicago here, Lions favored by 3.
Yes. The Lions, we talked on the show the other day about their struggling defense. And the emailer said that, look, one of the biggest things that causes them problems is a running quarterback, like anybody that can get yards on the ground. And Chicago is absolutely a running quarterback. I mean, Justin Fields.
I'm not going to disagree with that, but it feels like that's a lot of defenses.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But I think it's fair to say that right now the Lions defense is underachieving or has regressed or as the injuries have mounted to the point where they are getting overwhelmed. And Justin Fields, I think, is a particular nightmare for them generally because of what he can do on the ground. Now, the one thing that is relevant to this dynamic is Fields has looked better since coming back from his thumb injury. Part of that is he just hasn't been punished for the bad plays he's got. Like, he has 2 turnover-worthy plays in each of the last 2 games since coming back and has, I think, 1 interception in that time. Now he's got fumbles as well, but it kind of feels like they've avoided getting punished for those bad plays. If the Lions can actually create the turnovers, that can change the whole thing.
Last time we saw Chicago, that was the Monday night game at Minnesota, where it was death by a million wide receiver screens on that side of the ball. It was really weird, man, because, again, the fact that Fields started this season looking like he'd never played quarterback again, like his first couple starts, he had never played quarterback. Like, there's 3 open receivers, and you've decided to run backwards. Why is that happening?
Well, there was that, and then there was why did you spend last season's half a year it took you to understand why don't we use this guy as a design part of the run game? And then at the start of the season, it was like we just rebooted. We forgot all of that information, and we started over again. And it's the same thing. It took half the year for them to go, hey, why don't we just call some design run plays for Justin Fields? Like, dude, this is genius. Why does that keep happening?
Then they seemingly figured it out, and he looked like he did last year, where it was like, okay, he's a dynamic runner. He's a good downfield passer beyond 20 yards. Let's, if we can iron out some accuracy issues, some footwork, taking too many sacks, if we can iron out some of these things, we have something here. So we're like back at that point with Fields, where I think there's a lot of promising play. His running ability is a game changer, whether it's in the design game or as a scrambler, but we're looking for him to, tidy up and polish some of the other parts of his game. So when that is the case, I mean, in any given week, Fields could be special. But then you have a game like the other night where they just kept throwing screens. Like, they were so afraid of Minnesota's pass rush and blitz schemes and trickeration that they just said, we just got to screen it the whole time. So I just don't know what we're going to get here. But they played well against the Lions until they just kind of, they couldn't put a drive together in the second half. They put one big drive together in the second half but settled for a field goal. So they have the pieces to pull this upset.
I think they'll be a lot more confident with their own offense than they were against Minnesota. Like, I think the Vikings defense is so confusing to a lot of teams that they don't quite know what to do or what to call. Whereas against the Lions, I think they'll have a lot more confidence to just play their game, air it out, target DJ Moore deeper down the field, let Justin Fields run. This feels like a game that if Jared Goff and the Lions offense can have a good game again, could be an absolute shootout.
We know the Lions and Goff haven't been as good on the road. The chat is asking if it's a weather game.
Not according to my information. 36 and scattered clouds.
Whatever API we use for the weather in Greenline, He uses scattered clouds a lot.
A lot.
Every game is scattered.
Well, how often do you see clouds that are, congealed? It's all scattered.
It's all scattered.
Not
So is
congealed
that
cloud.
just rolling partly cloudy and mostly sunny into one and saying that's all of that scattered clouds?
No, I think it's, I guess the question would be, what is the difference between scattered clouds and partly sunny?
There's some sort of, I don't know if we have any meteorologists that listen. I asked for billionaires the other day.
Right.
Somebody stepped up in the YouTube chat, said, billionaire here.
Really?
His comment was, I'm a billionaire. Sam knows my mentality extremely well.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's tongue in cheek, but he got a lot of thumbs up. So I asked for billionaires the other day. If you're a billionaire, let us know. We want to know if there's billionaires listening to our show.
Also, give us some money.
Yeah, we'll set up a special email address for you.
Well, we're asking.
And we'll send our Venmos. But we're just curious if you're a billionaire. But if you're a meteorologist as well, please step up. Help us out. Partly cloudy, mostly sunny. But I think it's a percentage thing. I think there's a
tipping point.
There's a percentage of clouds that equal mostly sunny, and there's a percentage that equals partly cloudy.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I could buy that.
I went to school with a couple.
Absent of knowledge to the contrary, that feels reasonable.
I have a couple of meteorologist friends from college that we'll ping on Twitter or something. I'll try to get some answers here.
Great.
Anyway, Lions on the road here. What is it, 3.5? Is what I'm seeing right now. Do you have it at 3?
3 is in the document.
I see it at 3.5 on Green Line, I believe.
Okay, well, it must have moved since I put it in. Feel free to change it.
Yeah, man, Lions. And look, I still think
it has moved, and it moved like a minute ago.
I worry about the Lions' defense as far as their ability to going forward. Alim McNeil just got put on IR at defensive tackle. They're bringing in Bruce Irvin, in year 11. So they're trying to figure out some help for Aiden Hutchinson up front. Secondary's been banged up. They're holding on as best they can, but I think the Lions offense will get this thing done. So where are you going with this one? So we're going to go 3.5 here?
Yep.
Who are you taking?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I will buy the Bears at home, having enough success to keep it within 3.5.
All right, give me the Lions, even on the road. Nobody answered our question in the chat. We have no meteorologist in the chat helping us out.
Billionaires, but no meteorologists.
Yeah. I'm seeing clear on Sunday. 14% chance of rain, 37 degrees.
That's what I said. Scattered clouds.
Yeah,
It's clear.
Scattered clouds.
Scattered clouds is largely clear.
You should say largely clear.
Right?
Largely clear because it's scattered clouds. Okay, let's get to the 4 o'clock games. By the way, there's 2 Monday Night Football games this week.
NFL is just like jacking the schedule in the next few weeks. Multiple Monday nights, a whole day of Saturday games the week after.
The Saturday ones, that's a tough discussion with the family. It's just a tough one.
Hey,
Listen,
the
Saturday's our day as a family. However,
it's like, hey, the way I normally spend all Sunday watching football. Yeah. Well, next week it's both days.
They've got a triple header, honey. Don't worry.
Think of
We've
Sunday.
got the morning at least.
Think of Sunday and now project that to Saturday, but also Sunday staying the same.
But don't worry, it's easier. They're all island games. So I can put all my attention into that one game. Changes everything. All right, the 4 o'clock games. 4:05. Minnesota Vikings at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Vikings favored by 3. They have announced Josh Dobbs will be the starting quarterback here. So they were mulling this over if they were going to go back to Jaren Hall, give him a shot, if they were going to overreact to Josh Dobbs being really bad on Monday Night Football, and they decided against it. They're going to go back to Dobbs here for this game.
It did feel like this would have been a pretty wild overreaction. I mean, okay, Dobbs has probably been talked up above and beyond what he's actually played like this season because of the story, and but he has been. His style makes them. It makes them difficult to contend with, right? Because a quarterback that can scramble and make a ton of plays, it's like Justin Fields last year, right? Even if fundamentally he's not actually that good, it's dangerous as hell because in any play he can score, right? And that, A, is terrifying for defenses, and B, means that you can stink for quite a large period of time and still be productive. So Dobbs this year, I think, was keeping them in a lot of games, and by them I mean Minnesota and Arizona, and it was probably more dangerous than it was good. But then against Chicago, it's like the whole thing just collapsed, and he was making mistakes left, right, and center, and the turnovers were ever present as they appear to be for the Vikings all year. And there was a point during the game I forget which ridiculous turnover it happened after, where they like cut to Kevin O'Connell on the sideline, and he looked just like bemused by like, what the hell is happening? This is insane. And okay, sure, that was that game, but I don't know that you throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, I can't have that again. I got it. Like, that's probably not going to happen again. Let's just give him another shot.
The intriguing thing about Jaren Hall, though, is that he was intriguing for the 8 or 10 dropbacks that he had.
Right, but it's like
some good stuff, but it's tough to rely on.
It's 8 or 10 dropbacks versus a guy that's been doing it all season long. Like, do you really say, hey, everything we thought we knew about Hall has gone out the window because of one drive? No, like, give Dobbs the shot.
The other element too is, I mean, you know me, I'm a big proponent of wide receiver 1, the alpha receiver, and the impact that he has. Right. So Justin Jefferson's supposed to be coming back for this, correct? For this game?
Yeah, after the bye. So this week, right?
So if you were evaluating Josh Dobbs, like if this, with any other quarterback, if I said, man, this poor guy lost Justin Jefferson and still produced,
right,
we would compliment that quarterback and say that's a really good job. And so Dobbs stepped into the situation with no Justin Jefferson. And, Jordan Addison's been fantastic as a rookie. He's done some really nice things. He's also left a few plays on the table. Mm-hmm. But it's like Brandon Powell and it's Addison, and they've TJ Hawkinson has been great, but I mean that's impressive that they've done this without Justin Jefferson and been as competitive as they've been. And now Jefferson's coming back. So yeah, I think Dobbs does deserve the opportunity here.
Yeah.
On the other side, the Raiders coming off a bye. They lost to Kansas City last time we saw them. I think lost in the mix there was Aiden O'Connell, had a really good game. They got up early on the Chiefs. They just could not. Eventually, the Chiefs offense just caught up to the Raiders defense there. But O'Connell played a really nice game against the Chiefs defense, getting the ball down the field and creating some big plays.
Yeah, he's looked good. I mean, he's an entertaining rookie to watch play. He hasn't had a lot of the really bad plays that plagued him in college, and the good stuff is still there. He's able to make all the throws. Like, I'm absolutely in this world of like, hey, young guys or backups that are intriguing to watch. I am all for watching any game with Aiden O'Connell in it.
We have a couple pilots stepping up.
What?
Giving us some answers here. On scattered clouds. Well, they know cloud cover very well.
Yeah?
I should ask my brother-in-law. He's a pilot as well.
Okay, so what do the pilots say?
And someone else also said scattered clouds equals 3/8 to 4/8 or 1/2 cloud coverage. Okay, so they do cloud coverage the way we do heights and weights and heights in the NFL.
With eighths?
Everything. Yeah.
Why can't you people just use the metric system like everybody else?
3/8. That's what's wrong with that.
What's wrong with 3/8?
Yeah.
What's wrong with
0.375? So 3/8 to 4/8 cloud coverage correspond to a partly cloudy or partly sunny sky.
Whoa, hang on. Those are interchangeable?
With broken clouds, which is 5/8 to 7/8 cloud coverage.
So scattered clouds is different from broken clouds.
Yeah.
But scattered cloud is the same as, what was the thing you said?
And then someone else with another pilot steps up and says scattered is up to 4/8 of the sky covered.
But scattered cloud is the same as some sunny delineation?
Scattered corresponds to partly cloudy or partly sunny.
Okay.
Now, what I need to know is that I need to differentiate between
clouds.
Partly cloudy and partly sunny.
Right.
Because there's got to be some sort of differentiation.
But those are also different to broken cloud cover.
Broken is more cloud coverage.
And then there's an even higher cloudy, which
5/8
is just
to 7/8.
Cloudy as hell.
I assume 8/8 is all clouds
cloudy.
Is just
cloudy, period.
Super cloudy or something.
No, just cloudy.
It's just cloudy.
Period. I mean, it's cloudy.
Max clouds. They want to know, how would you use the metric system to measure cloud coverage?
Well,
what is 3/8 in the metric
same.
system?
You would just, instead of 3/8, it would be a percentage.
So you're saying 37.5% is how you...
I wouldn't draw it at 37.5.
That's
I would
what 3/8 is.
Right. What I'm saying is it's only 3/8 because you're using the eighths system. Instead, you would just use the metric system and draw your line at a normal percentage, like a round number.
No, but that's what percentages are.
What?
There's not different percentages in the metric system.
Right, but it's not 3/8 because that's the place that makes most sense for the cloud line to be drawn. It's 3/8 because that's the eighths that you're using.
Jeez.
Whereas instead you just say it's 40% or whatever.
I don't think you're right. All right.
You think that 3/8 is actually a really important line for cloud cover, And that's why we're sticking with the 8s. You think that that's the line, right? But if you moved it to 40%,
yeah.
if you moved it to 40%, that would be crazy.
Yes.
That
has nothing to do with the metric system. It's about denominators. You're saying I want a better denominator. I want it out of 10.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
That's not the
but
metric
you're saying
system.
it's really important that the line is 3 8s because that's where
you're arguing about the metric system when you're arguing about denominators.
Yeah.
That's different. That's a whole different podcast.
All right. I don't think we should do that podcast.
Let's make picks on Vikings and Raiders here. Vikings favored by 3 going into Vegas. By the way, Max Crosby still not practicing. Apparently, I mean, that knee injury he had was like really bad.
Yeah.
He had 1 sack. Last time we saw him, 1 sack against the Chiefs. It was his only pressure. He was, unable to play at the normal level that he plays and didn't practice this week. Not sure if he's going to be able to go. Where are you going with this one?
Minnesota. I don't think Josh Dobbs has that kind of game again, and therefore they're better than that.
And Justin Jefferson coming back. Yeah, give me the Vikings to cover the 3. Indoors as well. They'll be chucking it around. All right, Seahawks at the 49ers. Niners favored by 10.5. These teams just played two weeks ago on Thanksgiving night. It's one of those division games where you see the same game 2 times in 3 weeks. Happens a couple times every year.
Indeed.
Niners favored by 10.5. They are, as the kids call them, a wagon right now. A wagon. They're a wagon.
Yeah.
Which means they're just rolling over everybody.
Well, they stomped Seattle the last time. I mean, this is one of their, take your pick, but this is one of their statement wins since they went on that 3-game losing skid. It is like the 3-game, all of those had no Debo and no Trent Williams, right? The 3-game losing skid. And one of them was the added sort of confounding factor of it was against Cincinnati when they had Joe Burrow cooking and everything was good. So basically, if they've had all of their players, their significant players in the lineup, the 49ers are undefeated this year.
Yeah.
And, I don't see any evidence that Seattle can stop that.
Yeah. I don't either.
They're the best team in the NFL this year when they're healthy.
The one thing that Seattle did, last week, hanging with Dallas, to me, Seattle needs those special games. Like when I was predicting how can Seattle pull off the upset against Dallas, where I was completely wrong, was saying, hey, maybe if they run the ball and create some plays against Dallas's run defense and shorten the game, maybe they have a chance. But instead, they decided, what if Geno Smith has 6 big-time throws and DK Metcalf goes off? That's if Seattle can do things like that, which is tough to bottle up.
No, here's a question for you. I thought about this earlier. I was like, this is more of a Wednesday question, but actually, no, it's here. So one of the things we were talking about heading into that Dallas game was actually the way Dallas generally gets a lead and then murders teams kind of plays into the Seattle's hands because they can actually they're maybe at their best when they just drop back and start passing it, even though they want to run the ball and blah, blah, blah. Like just airing it out to DK and Tyler Lockett and JSN might be where they're at their most dangerous and effective. Somebody tweeted, I think, during the week, it's like, what do you need to beat the 49ers? The best answer I saw was a lead, right? Which on one level is like a facetious, funny, of course, if you have a lead all the way to the end, you're going to win the game. But on the other hand, the one area where this offense struggles is playing from behind, right? If the game script is neutral, this offense is basically unstoppable and is destroying teams. Where Shanahan is historically terrible is down significantly. He does not come back ever. This offense isn't really built to do it. So the Dallas Cowboys took the ball, right, against Seattle. And the numbers say, don't do it, terrible thing to do. You're just sacrificing win percentage points by taking the ball instead of deferring to the second half where you can 2 for 1 at either side of halftime, yada, yada. Is the 49ers actually a team where you want to take the ball against? Go down, score a touchdown, put them down 7, and if you get one stop, you can put them in a double-digit hole where their entire offense is different.
I think there's a lot of conflating variables there. First off, I don't think it's a massive win probability shift to take the ball versus in the first versus the second half. I think all you want is if you're going to have an extra possession, you want it in the second half, not the first. That's the
Well, you get to control getting an extra
It's not
possession.
about, but it's like not about the double hit at the end of the first half or
I
whatever.
think it definitely is. It's being able to control getting that extra because you.
But you're not controlling anything.
No,
All
you
you're
are.
do-
If
you're
you
gonna get-
have the ball before halftime, you control the clock. You can determine who has the extra possession, essentially. You can't do that if you've taken the ball at the start. You don't have that same level of control.
Because you would have had the extra. You just would have your extra possession in the first half instead of the second half. Like you're not gonna. It's not about the double whammy and the middle eights and all that stuff. It's not. It's just about if you have an extra possession, you'd rather know the game flow a little bit more. Like if you're down 3 scores, you'd rather have the extra possession in the second half, so you know you're down 3 scores and you need to play differently. That's what it really is. Yeah, that's another one of those. That's a prayer, not a strategy. Like let's just be winning. But like I don't mind. Yeah, let's.
But you definitely can't control that in the second half. If you take
I don't
the ball,
mind. Like take the ball. Like fine, I don't care. Like the difference between taking the ball in the first or the second half, I think is marginal. I would always take it in the second half because of these reasons. And if there's a chance right now, I think it's fine. Yeah, I'd say yes. Take the ball if you have the opportunity because there's a chance that this Niners wagon is worse with a lead.
Yeah.
But I would also say that's
With a deficit.
how do I get the lead the same way you got the lead against Dallas, which was we got to create explosive plays in the pass game. And I do think Seattle is best fit to do that or best set up to do that now than they've ever been
But I
because
think-
of JSN and his emergence.
I think the overall point being the only way of stopping this 49ers team right now is to put them in a hole and change the way their offense plays the game because you can't stop it the way it is otherwise.
No, I agree.
So take the ball,
Try to score early.
hit a bomb to DK, go up 7, and then try and desperately get a stop and try and get a second score, and then the whole game changes in your favor.
Yeah, it's definitely a Wednesday question, but I'll say like coaches are very funny. They'll say no, analytics are stupid, but they'll also search for like they'll look for stats that say every time you block a punt, you win 90% of their games, and they'll like cling to that thing. And yeah, the team who scores first wins like 58% of their games or 60, but whatever it is, because usually the better teams score first. So it's not something that so how do you do that? And it's like, hey, you need to just be good on third down. All right, so how do I do that? Like practice more? So yeah, it's a very difficult thing to just say, let's do well in the most important situations. However, there is a way to call the game to say we need to be more aggressive early to try to get up. And so I will buy into that as a strategy. If you're the underdog Seahawks or underdog anybody, try to get up on the Niners early, be so aggressive early, and try to make it, a game where they do have to try to play from behind. So I'll agree with that mostly. 10.5 though. Look, Seattle showed I think they can hang with Dallas, but yeah, the Niners, they're just too good, man. Seattle's finishing this stretch of very difficult games here.
Yeah. I mean, I think the 49ers, unless what we just described happens, i.e. Seattle can completely change the dynamic of the game early and force the 49ers into a game script situation they haven't been used to, then I think the 49ers will just walk away with it.
2 weeks ago, Seattle's pass blocking, they couldn't handle the Niners. The pass blocking wasn't much better against Dallas, but Geno just kept throwing dimes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, again, that's not like a bottle it up and do it, but
Right.
if Geno can hit throws like that, they can at least maybe hang and score enough points, and then you hope for some volatility here. But yeah, I'll take the 10.5 is a lot.
But I don't like the
Niners to
49ers.
keep.
The 49ers
covering.
defense is so good that I don't think it's a realistic strategy to just try and keep pace with them. Like I think you actually need to knock their offense out of their game script and change it.
That part I think is fair because then they don't, they can go through everything that they do, exploit linebackers, run the ball when they want to, Deebo Samuel, and there's just too many answers for the Niners. But yeah, if they do become a little bit more one-dimensional, it is maybe the one advantage that teams have against a Shanahan team. All right, we got the Denver Broncos at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are favored by 2.5 against the Broncos here. Broncos fell to 6-6 with their loss last week. Chargers 5-7. So if the Chargers pull the win off here, they'll have the same record, 6-7.
Yes.
So Broncos come back down to earth a little bit last week with the loss. Very turnover heavy on that defensive side of the ball. Can they do that? They get back to that against the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, come back down to earth a bit against a good team, though. This is one of those lines that stands out each week as not off, but, surprising. Like, Denver have been playing a lot better. on both sides of the ball over the course of the year. I think their defense is good enough to cause the Chargers problems, particularly when they have a banged-up offense. Like, not everybody, almost nobody is healthy on the offense, certainly from a skill position point of view. And like they put up 6 points last week in their win and cover against the Patriots. But like I think Denver will be able to have success on both sides of the ball, and I think the Chargers are just too banged up to overcome that.
Can the Chargers catch the ball?
I mean, sure.
Will be the question here.
Yeah.
Will they catch Herbert's passes? A little easier maybe in the Dome than playing in Green Bay or in the rain in New England. But, I mean, again, Herbert has overall, I think, played pretty well. We keep asking our question about the Kellen Moore experience with Herbert and, have we learned anything? Or, it's a team averaging similar number of points and, Herbert's style has changed a little bit, but the performance is, ends up being similar. I do think overall it's been more good than bad, though. And I really think when you look at the Chargers, it ends up being just personnel problems, which I didn't expect. I mean, people are excited about the Chargers every year because the personnel looks good. But I think the skill position personnel, when you lose Mike Williams and you get the worst of the top drafted rookie receivers, I mean, then
that's
it's a challenge, right?
So it's ended up being exactly the same story again. We've just come by that by a different route to get there. Like normally it's been, all their best players get injured and blah, blah. Now some of their best players have been injured, but even guys like Austin Eckler got injured and then has come back and hasn't looked like the same
Doesn't
guy
look good.
yet.
No.
Now, I don't know if that's sort of malicious compliance because of the contract stuff or if he's simply not 100% or hasn't been able to come back to 100% since being injured, but he's not the same threat that he was before getting hurt. And then Quentin Johnson is the other obvious, just absolute body blow to what this offense is achieving right now in an era where wide receivers overwhelmingly are able to just step into the NFL and produce and be really good. Johnson's struggling, and that's crippling the offense.
You'll like this.
Yeah.
My checking account gives me alerts when things get spent, right?
Yeah.
So my wife's over in Disneyland, right? So I just got an alert that it was only $11.73.
Oh.
That was spent at Mint Julep Bar, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's happening out there. I know she's not drinking, but I don't know what she got at the Mint Julep Bar for $11.73. I just had to bring it up because you love your mint juleps.
I mean, I wouldn't have thought you could get much in Disney for $11 and whatever that was.
Oh, it's probably a pack of gum,
right? Is
what I'm assuming over there, or it's like an ice cream bar. But I don't know. I just thought that was funny. It just came in. Breaking news. Russ had the volatile game the other day, but bunch of big time throws, but a few turnover-worthy plays, including the one at the end. We're still seeing him and Cortland Sutton connect, but once a game. I don't know if the Broncos can keep this up though, right? They've been super run heavy, relying on the defense and the turnovers the last few weeks. It's a difficult thing to sustain, but they've definitely turned that defense around from the historic pace that they were on earlier.
Yeah, and Denver have left a lot of plays on the table the last couple of weeks. Like they, I think, have been potentially better than their output over the last few weeks. I don't know. I think the Chargers are too banged up. I feel like Denver's actually better than that on both sides of the ball. I think they'll win.
Your friend Mark Schlereth, another one of your heroes out there. Mark Schlereth, I guess, went to town on Russell Wilson the other day. And how bad it was Schlereth, right? Was that how bad he played?
Yeah. Well, he thinks he's making the offensive line look bad. Schlereth in the offensive line union.
Oh,
doesn't
I
like that.
I mean, depends on how you're judging the offensive line. There's ways to isolate the offensive line performance outside of the QB.
Yeah.
There's ways to do that. But yeah, he's never been O-line friendly.
No.
All right. Where are you going with this one? Broncos.
Denver.
Chargers favored by 2.5. You're taking the Broncos here.
Yep.
On the road. Going back to the Chargers Back to the Chargers They're going to make a run here.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 1,000 times.
Shame on you still.
Shame on somebody.
It's still shame on you. Yeah, I'll take the Chargers to cover the 3. All right, Monday Night Football doubleheader. We've made it to the last 2 games here. Tennessee Titans at the Miami Dolphins. So these games are both going off at the same time, too?
Yeah.
That's not too bad. All right.
One of them's a Manning game, right? Isn't that how they're doing it? One of them is...
I don't know.
One of them's the main Troy and Joe, and is the Manning the other one?
Well, the last time they did the Monday doubleheader, they brought in...
Dano.
No, well,
And
Chris
Lewis.
Fowler.
Yeah, it was Fowler.
Oh, yeah. So I think they have Lewis, because Lewis is tweeting all about the
Right, so
Dolphins.
it's Fowler
lately.
is the play-by-play, and then Sweet Lou and Dano, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
in the booth.
So it's not a Manning game.
I think I don't know, whatever. I think the Mannings are doing one of them, but probably not as the main broadcast.
Titans at the Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 13.5 here.
Yeah,
Again, the Titans have they did just lose in Nashville,
they did.
but they have not won a game outside of Nashville either.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins by 13.5 here on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Some news today. Austin Jackson, right tackle for the Dolphins, has just been re-upped.
Mm-hmm.
He is in the middle of a career year 4.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. In fact, talked about his prospective future contract yesterday.
Well, look at that. Nailed it. Remember, it's a right tackle friendly system, the Shanahan McDaniel scheme. And so they got the best out of Austin Jackson so far this year. Coming off his best game, too.
Yeah,
especially from
that's
a
the thing.
run-blocking perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we talked yesterday. Like, he's having a career year, and he's definitely better. It's not like it's been good, though, outside of, like, the last game or 2 of the last 3 games, I guess. But
Is Manningcast doing both games? Is that somebody said that in the
Ben
chat?
says
I don't know
no
if that's a joke.
Manningcast.
There's no Manningcast.
According to Ben Stockwell, our live
He's
fact
better than the
checker
person in the
at all
chat that's
times.
lying to me. Then,
He
yeah.
says no Manningcast whatsoever. So if Ben is telling the truth, that's the story.
Ben spends a lot of time listening to us. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and actually paying attention enough to be able to fact check us at all times.
Do you work, Ben? I'm just kidding. Love you.
What was I saying?
Something about Austin Jackson at right tackle.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you brought that up. Whatever. It's difficult to see how the Titans can slow down this Miami offense, which is why the spread is 13.5 points.
Yeah, as of last week, I haven't double checked it, but the EPA per play against outside corners, Titans were worst in the NFL.
The Titans have nobody on defense that can come close to matching up to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and
Which is not unique to them, but like they especially seem to be a problem for that.
The MVP hype for Tyreek Hill seems to be at a pinnacle right now. Again, as you don't have.
I wrote an article advocating for
You
it.
wrote about it. What was do you have 30 seconds to tell us how you.
And we basically covered it on the Monday show, I think, right? Which is in order to construct an MVP case for a wide receiver, you need to be able to make the argument that he's the more important element than the quarterback. And I think, as you said, as we concluded on Monday, you can do that for Tyreek. It's just a multiple year argument that's quite disingenuous, but you can at least sell it, right? It's like we know there are more than one factor involved in each of these elements, right? The Alex Smith thing, the Patrick Mahomes thing, the Tyreek Hill Tua thing. But you roll them all together and you say each one, Tyreek Hill was the more important element of the confounding factors, the credit pie, all that kind of thing. Roll it all together this year, add it to 2,000 yards and everything you see on the tape, and you can at least make the argument.
Yeah, his yards per route run figure just out of this world. Only getting, well, it gets screwed when he gets negative yards on screens where they throw, badly. But anyway, and then Tennessee, Will Levis, again, he's been, it's Monday night. It's going to be entertaining. The Dolphins defense has been sneaky good the last few weeks. Remember, they started kind of slow, but Jalen Ramsey's come back. Mm-hmm. Even though losing Jalen Phillips as a pass rusher a couple weeks ago, I think it's a tough blow for that defense, but they've been good on that side of the ball the last few weeks.
Van Ginkel
making big plays, including the pick 6 last week. But this will be Will Levis is going to be fun to watch.
Oh, always.
Right? He is aggressive throwing the ball down the field. He's running the ball. He's jumping over guys.
He's one of a few quarterbacks in the NFL whose arm is so good, the classic arm talent thing, right? That it's aesthetically pleasing to watch, right? Like there are some quarterbacks that just have a good arm and they're just good players, but it's the feels that you talk about all the time. You get none of the feels watching them just throw the ball. Will Levis has that Justin Herbert thing where you get the feels just watching him fire a pass at a ridiculous angle or platform and just like rifle it into somebody and like, damn.
I was going to say Herbert. Yeah, there's similarities there. The outside the numbers carry, and a lot of the things we said about Herbert as a rookie. I think Levis has that. Now that doesn't lead to production,
right? It's not a like connected to winning the game thing. It's just when you're watching a game, it's different. It is something interesting where he makes a few throws a game where you're like, wow, like independent of being good or bad at football, that is insanely impressive that a guy can fire a pigskin that hard and fast at another human being 20 yards away from him.
Come on, son, fire that pigskin. So, yeah, I mean, it creates big play opportunities that may not exist for other quarterbacks. That's what makes Levis fascinating, and that he will lean into that aggressiveness, right? So that makes it fun. The 13.5, huge spread, but yeah, this is what Miami has done against lesser teams, much like Dallas. When they have the big spread, they tend to cover and make a statement. So is this a Monday night statement game for the Dolphins?
I mean, I don't know if it's a statement game as much as I just think they're way better and they'll probably win quite comfortably.
That's a lot of points. I'll take Tennessee, though, for 13.5. Tennessee's, like, they have a bad record, but they're not non-competitive.
No,
you know?
I do just think that they are unusually badly equipped to stop Tyreek Hill, even relative to other people.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they just allot extra people and just say, okay, everyone else beat us. So those games will happen.
I'm going Miami.
I'll take Tennessee, though. 13.5 is a lot.
Can I read you just a funny tweet?
Of course.
Zach Rosenblatt said, Nathaniel Hackett said that Zach Wilson had 2 weeks off to, quote-unquote, center himself, and said the goal of the season was always for him to sit and watch, and he finally got to do just that. So this is like the company line selling point of, like, we didn't bench him. He just had a couple of weeks off to center himself, and now he's back and ready to rock. Thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm just picturing this, right? He gets benched. Aaron Rodgers, Coach Rodgers comes in. He's like, hey.
Coach Raj?
Hack. You know what Zach needs? A little centering.
Needs some time to center himself.
He's been off center all season.
He's been leaning to the left the whole time.
Yeah. If we get him centered, you know, maybe we make a run.
Align his chakra.
Yeah. Align the whole thing.
Feng Shui, the QB room.
There's no official report about a darkness retreat.
No.
Because I don't think that's an in-season thing.
No.
You can't do like the...
You can't just go off the grid for like 4 days.
You can't do the gi thing.
The cleanse?
You can't do the cleanse. You can't do that. That's off-season
We
stuff.
can't have that because then you're in danger of a Lamar Jackson bathroom emergency during a game.
You don't want that hitting during the game.
No.
So those are off-season things.
Yeah.
So an in-season centering, to me, sounds like it came from Coach Rodgers. That wasn't Saleh or Hackett.
No, God,
they're football guys, right? Because when you wake up on a Monday morning as a football guy, you're like, all right, I got the next team, I got a game plan. They're not thinking about my quarterback's got to be centered here.
No.
That clearly comes from the office of Coach Aaron Rodgers, where he came in and recommended to his fellow coaches on the Jets, hey, we got to get my friend Zach here centered.
I would pay to watch somebody inform Coach Saleh, though, that we're going to need a couple of weeks to recenter Zach.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it wasn't a benching at all. They just pitched, hey, I know, you know, and I know that Zach is our best chance of actually winning games right now. However, he needs to recenter himself, so you're going to have to go with Tim Boyle for a couple of weeks while we get him together. Cool? Gotcha.
Rodgers is just like, my friend Tim needs a couple starts. Tim's going to go in. My friend Zach's going to get centered for a little bit. I mean, Rodgers is he's the puppet master here, including the offensive coordinator, Hackett, one of his other guys. So that's what I'm seeing there. Maybe that's what Mac Jones needed in New England, a little centering. He needed a little mental break.
Well, he needed a Coach Raj advocate on the sideline.
Yeah.
Instead, he's got like Taskmaster Bill trying to ruin him.
No, Bill's trying to mentally make an unstable quarterback so we can get Drake May.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, leaves us 6 minutes to talk. The second Monday night football game. Green Bay Packers at the New York Giants. Packers favored by 6.5. The disrespect to Tommy DeVito.
Disrespect.
6.5, underdog.
Who's now the starter? Poor old Tyrod lost his job again from getting hurt.
Hey, he's got more broken ribs.
4 of them. 2 of them displaced.
God, what's up with his ribs?
To be fair, I think the previous thing was not, it was just whilst getting an injection on his sore ribs, they punctured his lung. It's not like they broke his ribs. It's like his ribs were already sore, and then in the attempt to alleviate the pain, they almost killed him.
Yeah. It's been a rough run for Tyrod the last 3 or 4 years.
It has, yeah.
Can the Packers stay hot here? They're favored by 6.5 in New York, Monday Night Football. I mean, the Packers the last 2 weeks, I said it after the Lions game. I said if they play like this, they can beat anybody.
Yeah.
And they were pretty close to playing like that again against the Chiefs. The offense, I don't want to say near perfect game, but they ran the ball effectively. They converted third downs. They created chunk plays. They did everything you need to do to beat the defending Super Bowl champs. And it was the second week in a row that you saw that from the Packers, right? Like a lot of times as underdogs, a team, they make a little run. And then the favorite counterpunches, and it sometimes ends it. The Packers have been counterpunching the favorites, man. They're coming back. They're like, no, I don't care. I don't care if you're coming back. We're going to create big plays, and Jordan Love is just playing out of his mind these last few weeks.
Yeah, and that's really the thing. Like, can that continue? Because I've never seen a quarterback improve in one specific area, like accurate ball location, throwing the ball where you want it to go, and actually hitting that exact spot instantly the way he has. Like Josh Allen did it, and Lamar Jackson did it, but it took them at least a year, probably 2. Jordan Love did it overnight. He just went randomly, okay, I'm going to start throwing the ball exactly where I want it now. I've never seen that. Why would that happen? So either a really weird switch has in fact been flipped in his mind, and he's just a different quarterback now, or he's just been on this weird run where for like 3 weeks straight he's been in the zone and dialed in.
Brett Coleman just tweeted a stat actually as I glanced at Twitter. His adjusted completion percentage, Jordan Love, 20-plus yards, weeks 1 to 8 was 24%, last in the NFL. And then since week 9, 58%, fifth in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like things did completely.
Right.
So he more than doubled his adjusted completion percentage on 20-plus yard throws over the last few weeks.
And I think the exact ball location, charting on all throws is an even more stark contrast in the similar kind of time period. It is a wild switch. Now, the Giants' defense, it's not like it's great, but it's an interesting challenge for any quarterback, right? Because they are extremely blitz heavy with Wink Martindale's scheme. They are, in fact, 11th in EPA per play against the pass. So it's not incompetent. It's actually a reasonably good defense. But and because it's unique, it is, a different – it's like we talked about earlier with the Vikings, right? They are such a weird scheme to deal with that sometimes it makes teams kind of tense up and go away from their own game and just automatically make themselves worse. So it's an interesting game for this Green Bay offense to see if they can sustain the good run, because it's a challenge that has caused other offenses problems.
Especially now with Christian Watson, his hamstring injury. Right. He's officially questionable, but it doesn't – I mean, my guess is –
You would assume out.
Yeah, you would assume out. But like the connection that they had, I can't get over the fact that Jordan Love a few weeks ago – remember the best play that they had in a game about a month and a half ago was a failed RPO. Everybody ran the wrong route. Jordan Love threw up a prayer and it got to a receiver. That was like the best play that they had against Pittsburgh.
Right.
And the receivers in him, not just accuracy, Sam, but they weren't even on the same page. They looked like they were playing with different playbooks for a while. And now Jordan Love is in the tight red zone on 2nd and long after a negative play, throwing the ball before the break on a post to Christian Watson, where he throws it to a thimble outside of the defender's reach for a touchdown. I mean, it is night and day, the types of plays and the confidence that Love is playing with and the connection that he has with his receivers. Now, they'll miss Watson, but you have Jaden Reed and you have other guys that have stepped up, and Dobbs and everything. So, I'm sorry, the other young receivers, Wicks, and I mean, it's been impressive. So I think Green Bay is going to continue to roll here. And maybe Tommy DeVito. We'll see what happens with DeVito. He'll cover, though.
He'll cover.
Like Tommy will definitely cover on Monday Night Football with the world watching. I'm sure his family's going to be featured heavily here on the broadcast as well.
You would think. I mean, outside of the Dallas game, which, again, Dallas has the best pass rush in the NFL and an absolute ball hawk at corner. I mean, that's a nasty defense to be playing against, particularly when you have a bad offensive line. Outside of that game, he's been pretty good.
Yeah. And I was joking at the time that the Giants were calling better plays, but they've, Daboll's historically a good, not play caller, like he's had good offenses, right? They're scheming stuff up pretty well these last few weeks for Tommy DeVito. Where are you going on this one, Monday Night Football?
I think the Giants
Tommy.
will be able to keep that within 6.5 points. I think their defense causes enough problems for Green Bay to keep it closer than that.
Yeah, I'm not betting against Tommy.
No, never.
So I'm going to stick with that. We don't bet against Tommy DeVito here. I think the Packers win, but the Giants will keep it close.
We had somebody message us that was like, as an Italian, I'm starting to get offended by the Tommy DeVito discourse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Are you offended as an Italian?
No. I think
Okay.
it's hilarious. I think people getting offended by stuff is,
Generally.
one of the weaknesses of society right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it depends on what you're getting offended by.
Yeah.
But by some harmless jokes, I think it's cool.
Gotcha.
Good? All right, got to go. Got a meeting.
That's what I'm saying.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. You'll be back tomorrow. Recap
Yeah.
at Thursday Night Football. See you on Monday, reviewing all the Week 14 NFL action.